Happy Monday morning, Chiefs Kingdom. This is All Chiefed Up. We're going to be talking about the busy week of Patrick Mahomes. Plus, rookie minicamp days 1 and 2 have kicked off. We're going to be talking about all that and more. Stick around.
Chiefs Kingdom. It's time for All Chiefed Up with your hosts, Steve and Mike Williams. From the Bluegrass to the Red Sea, this is the Kingdoms Podcast.
What is happening, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to All Chiefed Up. Mike, it's been a busy week. Rookie minicamp kicked off. Had the Kentucky Derby. Patrick Mahomes has been making the rounds. So, yeah, a little bit going on. You know, quieting down a little bit after the draft, but things are still going. Things are still moving.
It's constant busy, man. The NFL has made this a 365-day-a-year spectacle. It never quits. We did get to take a little bit of a break, though. We went to P.F. Chang's this past weekend. Some of our amazing donors actually paid for a birthday dinner for us. That was pretty awesome. We did that. And then, we got back at it, man. And minicamp's going, like you said. We had the Kentucky Derby. Patrick Mahomes was in town. He was in Louisville. Patrick Mahomes has been going crazy, man. He started it off at the Met Gala, Steve. Him and Brittany went to the Met Gala. Then he did Riders Up at Kentucky Derby 149. And then today he was spotted at the Miami Grand Prix F1 racing. He was there. He was actually with Brett Veach. What do you think about it, man? Quarterbacks at the old Chiefs don't usually get this much recognition.
No, but when you go out and you win 2 Super Bowls in your first, 5 years as a player, you're going to be a little popular, man. So I think it's what it is, and it's crazy. I couldn't imagine having to stick to a schedule like that. I mean, it's got to be cool for, a 26-year-old. But, to me, it's just geez, poor guy. They got to slow down a little bit because he's getting ready to have to start focusing back on football full-time sooner than you think. So, we have rookie minicamp, OTAs, things like that. But, actual camp, like we were talking about yesterday, man, it's coming on up, in less than 2 months or so. Is that what it is? The end of August, maybe?
It's coming up soon, man.
A couple months, man. It's not that far away. But yeah, the draft was fun. Everybody's been digging in on those players and talking about them, who they like, what they like, and if they thought the draft was overall good, which I think we both kind of decided Brett Veach did what he needed to do. And it was cool to see the players come in. I actually saw the video you posted of Rashee Rice trying on his helmet, and he was so excited and pumped. And you've seen videos of Keondre Coburn being super excited to be a Chief. And, of course, Felix, man. He's been a Chiefs fan since he was a kid. So, yeah, there's a lot going on right now. And then you got Patrick Mahomes running around being a celebrity, Travis Kelsey being a celebrity. It comes with the territory, I guess. But it's fun to see the actual football stuff going on in the background, like these new guys coming in and being excited about it.
Yep, they're getting ready to play in the golf match, too, on TNT versus Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. That's going to be a wild one for real. But, yeah, man, Patrick's been super busy, super busy. He did Riders Up at Kentucky Derby 149. We actually threw up a short clip. You can go find that on YouTube. If you don't subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/allchievedup. Get over there. We got tons of content. But yeah, man, we got that going. Again, like I said, he was at the Grand Prix today in Miami. He was with Brittany, obviously, but Brett Veach was also there. Isn't it funny how Brett Veach and Patrick Mahomes, Shane Buechele was with him at the Kentucky Derby. All these vets and some of this front office, they just left Andy by himself back in KC with the rookies. I think it's hilarious. All these rookies are in there just working their tails off and finally getting into it, getting acclimated, and Mahomes is out been there, done that. We're just at a Grand Prix race. Don't care.
That's how it goes, man. I actually saw a clip from mini training camp. I think it was yesterday. The receivers were catching some balls and stuff, and Andy Reid was just intensely watching them. He was all over it. I think the caption someone had put on the video was no pressure, no pressure. But Andy was just sitting there and just death staring at these receivers, man. But it's cool to see these new guys get in and get acclimated. We all saw it last year when Leo came in and was being all crazy and talking smack. And then, of course, we had Skyy. And this year, it's a little bit different kind of group, but I think they're all going to fit in pretty well, and I'm pretty excited to see what they can do, man.
Right. So we'll get into rookie minicamp day 1. As you said, you alluded to it earlier, I did post a little quick thing so everybody could get acclimated to what happened. There's not a lot of news and and stuff coming out, it's kind of closed off to a lot of the media. There's only a select few getting in there. But yeah, so the play of the day was the wide receiver out of Fresno State. We brought him in, Nico Remigio. Apparently he made an amazing catch up the left sideline. They said that the coaches, everybody was raving over it. I don't know who exactly threw him the ball. Obviously it wasn't Patrick. He's not there. So we have no info. I don't even think anybody had any video of that, actually. That's how closed off this is. It's just word of mouth. But other than that, we had a few other big standouts on the day, man. We had Nic Jones, our 7th-round pick out of Ball State. He got an interception in team drills. We had Buddy Johnson, a linebacker, come in. He got an interception 7-on-7. And then, of course, just Rashee Rice, like you said, he was catching balls as a punt returner, catching balls as a kickoff returner. He's trying to learn the terminology. And then the other big one on the day would have been Chamarri Conner, actually taking every bit of the snaps at safety so far. So we thought maybe he'd come in, play the slot a little bit, play a little corner. It's looking like they brought him in for safety only, although that is going to switch as the season goes on. You can just about guarantee that one.
Yeah, for sure. They'll move him around a little bit. I think they did the same thing with Najee Johnson last year. He was I think brought in as a safety, and they started using him at corner, so it was kind of the opposite thing. But they like those guys that they can move in the defensive backfield, so that's a pretty cool thing. And I think he even said that he would be doing some reps at both. But we're officially in that time of the year where everyone goes crazy and hypes up some random UDFA over a catch at a practice with no defender and not even his real quarterback. That's where we're at, Mike. Everybody,
hey, it is what it is.
It's so slow, man. That's everybody fiending for the Chiefs football. So I mean, everybody's been all over Deneric Prince talking about how he's an Isaiah Pacheco clone and he's going to be great and he's going to make the roster and all this stuff. And I mean, I like the guy. He's got potential, but we're at that time of the year, man. It happens every year. It's fun and funny to watch all at the same time when everybody gets so excited about these UDFAs and things. But I'm super excited about our draft picks. I think Felix Anudike-Uzomah, I think that he'll contribute right off the bat. And I also think Rashee Rice will be able to do that as much as Andy will allow him, because we know how Andy Reid is with the rookie wide receivers. We saw that with Skyy Moore last year. They don't get a big workload, but I think that Rashee Rice has a chance to come in and get maybe a little bit more workload than Skyy got last year. So I'm excited to see it. I think Keondre Coburn can come in and make a ruckus early too. I think he can get some good snaps in there.
Felix, speaking of Felix, he was spotted yesterday, day one. He has his hand wrapped up. He wasn't even doing team drills. He didn't do anything. He did a few individual drills, kind of just sit on the sidelines. Day two, he still wasn't participating. He's just off to himself, doing a little hand drills, doing this and that, while Coburn and BJ Thompson are out there working on like their leverage, their attack point. They're working on their their hand motions and stuff. Like there's video of just got videos of Felix over there just not even moving with his feet, just like So he's not really doing much.
Chopping.
Right, but again, not a big deal. We've seen that happen with Skyy Moore last year. He barely done anything because of a hamstring injury. And it's just so early in the year, it doesn't matter. These guys are just coming in. They're getting their helmets fitted. They can't even go in full pads. It's just helmets. They're getting an idea of what it's like to take part in an NFL practice conducted by Andy Reid. They're doing a little team, little team reps, little 7-on-7 drills, just small things to get them in there.
Getting their feet wet.
Yeah, get them acclimated. But they did get up on the podium a little bit, Steve. They actually had an interview with Nic Jones. Nic Jones was talking about that awesome pick he had in team drills, and he said he attributes that to his baseball background. And so I was like, well, Nic Jones, I got one for you. Why don't you take your little happy butt right across the parking lot and go put on a Royals uniform because they need some help?
Yes, they do. They actually won today, but, when you're like 9-25 or something, whatever the record is, I think he could help them probably. Might be able to do it.
Right.
But, man, like you were saying, it's so early, and it's just like a little, hey, rookies, to get your feet wet kind of thing. Let's see what we got. It's like the beginning of the beginning, right? So I don't think anything should worry anybody at this point. I actually saw everybody had a bit of a meltdown when they found out that Isaiah Pacheco had surgery. So that was a thing this past week, where he had said in an interview that he had an off-season surgery. And then There was actually, I made a short of it on YouTube, so if you are on our YouTube, check that out. But there was a video for the draft. There's a little promotion thing. It was like saying it doesn't matter where you get drafted, and it had all these guys on there, like Aaron Jones and people like that had been drafted late and still contributed right away and were just really good. Pacheco was on there, and it showed him, and he had a cast on his hand. And then, of course, we know that he was on the last injury report of the year before the Super Bowl with a wrist and all kinds of other stuff. So everybody was just like speculating, like, what's going on here? Why do you have a surgery done? And all that good stuff. Everybody was worried about it, but it was just typical off-season cleanup stuff, right? I think guys get hurt during the year, and then they have like small surgeries done and things like that, little cleanup stuff. And I think that's what was going on with Pacheco. Am I right?
Right. Christian Dyer, he actually reports, he does a little work with Rutgers. He does some stuff for USA Today. He reports out of New Jersey, so obviously he's up there in the New York, New Jersey area with the Rutgers. He's familiar with Pacheco. He actually come out today and said that Pacheco played much of the rookie year with the Chiefs with a torn labrum, and he suffered a broken hand during the AFC Championship game versus the Bengals. And then he had surgery in the offseason on both of those. He said both of those. So I found it pretty telling. The torn labrum, the broken hand, I guess he had to do a little cleanup surgery on both of them. But we've always said this, Pacheco runs like a bull. He runs like
a madman.
Just a straight madman, yeah, for real. And so the fact that he didn't get more injured than what he did is quite amazing, because he just looks to just put the punishment on people that try to tackle him. And that's why it was so big that we re-signed Jerick McKinnon back, I thought, because you have to have Jerick McKinnon in that room. I think he's a good veteran leadership. We obviously found out that they're not picking up Clyde Edwards-Helaire's fifth-year option, but everybody's like, hey, what are they going to do with Clyde? And we keep telling people, Clyde's still on this roster. We still think he's going to be able to come in and produce. They're still going to rely on Clyde at certain points. They still may trade Clyde. They still may do something like that. I actually seen a report come out from Chat Sports Cleveland, and they said that they felt Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be a trade target for the Browns. Thought that was interesting, but then again, that's just Chat Sports throwing out those rumors. They get the rumor mill going over there. But yeah, so what do you think, Steve? Do you think this is going to be a big deal heading into Pacheco's sophomore season, or do you think it's a no biggie? And also, which running backs you think we're going to roll with? Like, how do you think that room's going to shape up before we actually do get to camp? Do you think we'll sign another veteran, or do you think we're just going to stick with what we got?
Man, it's weird that you brought this up, because I was actually getting ready to bring it up. So the running back room's interesting, right? Like, I think that's one of the positions where everybody's kind of wondering what's going on. And, of course, all the hype of Deneric Prince, and everybody's like, oh, he's going to make the team. And then everybody thinks Clyde's done and things like that. I said the other day on our YouTube live stream, Chiefs fans need to brace themselves for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to come out and play a lot this season. They need to go ahead and get ready for that, because I've not seen anything in the last few years that shows me that Andy Reid will go away from him when he's healthy and ready to go. Like, Clyde, a lot of times, is their RB1. They use him. They give him the reps. And Clyde does decent. I mean, he puts up some numbers, and he's not terrible. So, I mean, if he's there, they're going to utilize him. And he's on a contract year. So, I mean, he's got to show out, right? Because even if he's not going to be a Chief, somebody's going to have to sign him. He's going to want a good contract. So, I mean, he's going to play. And he's going to play hard. So, will they use that to their advantage? Quite possibly. But I think if Clyde's still here and they don't use him in some kind of a random deal that could just, come up, I think that he's going to play. And I think that him and Pacheco will get most of the reps. And then you'll have Jerick McKinnon doing Jerick McKinnon's thing, where he comes in on third down, or he comes in and catches a couple balls and things like that. They like to use Jerick McKinnon for pass protection and different situations like that. And then, of course, Deneric Prince, if they wanted to roll with 4 and they don't want to sign some kind of a veteran running back, yeah, he could make the team, and they'd roll with 4 like they did last year with Rojo.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like there's a lot of time for them to sign, a veteran running back, because, some are getting ready to get cut. It's coming. Always happens. So they could maybe go that route as well, man. So I think that running back room's interesting. But that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think that people need to deal with it. If Clyde's here, Clyde's going to get a workload.
Yeah. People actually brought up that Derek Gore actually got cut. He's back out on the market. You'll notice that he played with the Chiefs for a little while. That's a possibility they could bring in. I think they only really do this if there's some injuries or something within the room. But I'm with you. I think they're going to play Clyde. I think Clyde's going to have to ask for a good workload because Clyde's not shown he can be healthy for an entire season. If he could come out and do that this year, put the team on his back a little bit, get a lot of carries along with Pacheco, he puts that on film, and that's going to help him going forward. The Chiefs, if they don't plan on re-signing him after this year, which it don't look like they do, it looks like to me like you would just – that's a first-round pick that you invested, a lot of draft capital in, some money to this point, a lot of time. Why don't you just want to run him into the ground if you're going to get rid of him anyway? You may as well do it if he's here. You may as well get what you can get out of him, put him out the door, if that's your plan. But, yeah, I really like Generic Prince. I think he's got a 50-50 shot of making this team. And then you never know. There could be some crazy signings. For all we know, Brett Veach could be in the process of trying to trade for somebody at running back. Who knows?
Right.
Brett Veach is out of control. He's down there at the Grand Prix race this weekend. There's no telling what him and Patrick are talking about. Hopefully they're working on a new contract negotiation. I bet you they have been talking about it. But, yeah, everybody keeps bringing up everything. But it's just so early here in the offseason that we just don't know where it's going to go. But I do think the running back room is in good shape right now. I think our wide receiver room has actually got back into pretty good shape. I don't think there's a problem there, as much of a problem as we thought. I think the DeAndre Hopkins thing can be put to bed. We don't think that's going to happen, probably.
Some people still out there throwing around trade Clyde to Arizona and something else for DeAndre Hopkins. I think they're holding on to the last little shred of hope they had of getting D-Hop, but I think they can let it go, man.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening, man. I don't see it. I think we had talked about the other day. If DeAndre Hopkins gets traded, he's going to a team we don't like. You know it. He's going to go to Buffalo. He's going to go to maybe even the Bengals to be a thorn in our side. Because we somebody stupid.
I could see it being stupid like that. But one thing that we haven't talked about since our last podcast was the signing of Donovan Smith, the left tackle from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yep.
And you're talking about Brett Veach, never really knowing exactly what Brett Veach is up to. And that's a good example right there, man. That one has been a head scratcher for me. And I think I boiled it down to I think that he's just depth. He's just a backup left tackle. That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
I don't know what else to go with here because, like, from the outside looking in, I've always said Brett Veach is very calculated and he always does things like everything he does is for a reason. And this is the first time as him with GM where I've really looked at it and been like, I don't think this is what he meant to be doing. Like, I think in the draft, I think they wanted to go up and take Anton Harrison, and they couldn't get the deal done with Dallas, and then Jacksonville took him, and I think that they had to go to plan B. So I think that they had all intentions of getting Anton Harrison and maybe starting him at left tackle or right tackle, and then Juwan Taylor can also swing, so seeing how that worked out. But obviously that didn't happen. They ended up getting Wanya in the third, so he's pretty much a right tackle. He had a limited time on the left side. But yeah, and then they go out. So they've paid Juwan Taylor massive left tackle money, and they're saying they're moving him to left tackle. So that's what everybody has in their head, even before the draft. Like, oh, they're gonna maybe get a guy to go on the right. But then they go out after the draft, after they draft a right tackle, and they sign a mediocre left tackle for $9 million that I don't think we had. Like, I don't even know where they're pulling this money from. Maybe I didn't look at the contract specifics. I'm sure they're out there by now, but I haven't even looked at it. Maybe there's a lot of incentives, maybe, signing bonus, things like that. I don't know. But either way, that one was a head scratcher for me, and I've been trying to wrap my head around it, Mike. So where are you at with that whole offensive line thing? And do you think this was a calculated thing, or do you think the Donovan Smith signing was a bit of a, oh crap, we got to do something just in case?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think when you look at it, Donovan Smith, he wasn't a number one priority, or they would have pulled the trigger on him earlier in the process, I believe. So I feel like it's one of those things where he didn't garner as much attention as he wanted. Maybe he wanted to come to the Chiefs, and again, I haven't got to find any contract details, but maybe he took some kind of a contract that, it goes off player incentives. Who knows? But I do think they did talk about Juwan Taylor so much moving over to that left side. It would be stupid to not think that he's going to be the left tackle.
I would think so.
Maybe this is just an insurance policy because we could not get Anton Harrison. You couldn't get a good left tackle in the draft. They settled on Wanya. Wanya can play left tackle, but he's not guaranteed. He's probably better on the right side. So I think this is something for like if Juwan Taylor and Wanya can't do it, you've got a guy in the wings. And then again, a lot of Chiefs Kingdom, $9 million. He's got to start for that number. He does not. Do you guys remember when we paid, I think, Kyle Long from the Bears we paid him like $5 or $6 million guaranteed.
He never played a snap.
He never played a snap. So $9 million doesn't mean anything in this league. They'll figure out a way to get in and out of it. I think he's there for a safety valve. I think he's there for depth. And if he starts on day one, I wouldn't be surprised with that either. I just think he's a piece. He's a piece, and it's anything to help keep that Mahomes jersey clean. That's all you can do at this point.
I keep saying that he's a mediocre tackle when I present this whole scenario, when I'm talking about it. And that's the thing. I'm calling him mediocre just because of last season. He played with a lot of injuries, and he wasn't that great last season. But if you look at his prior numbers from seasons before that, he's a pretty good left tackle. He's not bad. So, I mean, he's probably still a decent tackle. So, I mean, I think they end up...
A lot of Chiefs Kingdom's quick to point out that he didn't give up as many, pressures as Orlando Brown Jr. That's the big thing.
Because Tom Brady
Chiefs
throws
Kingdom.
the ball in 0.25 seconds, and Patrick Mahomes takes a 12-step drop and runs around for 5 minutes before he throws the
Chiefs
ball.
Kingdoms love the pressure stat. That's the only pressure that they value off PFF.
And it's so strange too that they love talking about this pressure stat, but really it's so distorted. It's so distorted because obviously if your quarterback gets rid of the ball faster, you could be the worst left tackle in the world and never let up a pressure if you got your quarterback throwing the ball in a split second. And then also we've talked about this before, but Patrick Mahomes, he leaves clean pockets. We know that. He takes a further drop back. There's lots of different things added into it. And then, of course, we run a lot of RPOs. Sometimes these guys go unblocked on purpose. And then when they pressure the quarterback, is that considered pressure? Is that considered pressure on the guy that didn't block him on purpose because that was a scheme? Like, that's just a weird stat for me to look at and go off of. I mean, obviously it's something to look at, but I think you got to take it with a grain of salt. You can't, it's not the word of God when it comes to left tackles.
People often say PFF, it can be bought. I think Kelsey actually said that PFF is something that agents can mess with if they want. PFF is just a bunch of guys in a room looking at film and determining what's this and what's that. They don't know schemes. They don't know anything.
Right.
We had Jason Dunn on the show, and he played in the NFL, and he's like, hey, I don't, agree with everything they do. Do they do some good work? Yes. I don't think you can take everything PFF says as face value, as the word of God. You just can't do it. But at the same time, you can't just also pick and choose which PFF stats you want to look at, which ones you don't. And then, as you said, you're playing for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence got rid of the ball a half a second faster than Patrick Mahomes did last year. Juwan Taylor played on the right side, so his competition was a little worse than on the left. There's so many factors here. So you would have to see what happens once he gets into camp and different things. I think Juwan Taylor can do it. Yeah. Do I think he's an upgrade? I can't call him an upgrade at this point. I've got to watch it. I have to watch it. I have to see it with my own eyes. So I think Donovan Smith is the insurance plan just in case. And wouldn't be surprised if we didn't make another offensive line signing at some point. I don't know if it'll be a tackle, but we may keep increasing the depth of offensive line there.
Well, why not? I mean, it's a good investment. I mean, you have to take care of Patrick Mahomes. That's the thing. And we got a lot of contracts coming up after this season. Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, Joe Tooney's is probably looming somewhere. But I mean, we have some pieces right now. We have Prince Teguanoga over on tackle. We got Darian Kennard. Darian's a guy that can play guard if we need him to play guard. So I mean, you have that. You have Wanya, who probably can do both. So I mean, they're probably going to. Obviously, Donovan Smith's a 1-year deal, and I do feel like it was just kind of an insurance plan, like a just in case kind of thing. Because I mean, if you went all in on Juwan Taylor being your left tackle and then he goes down with an injury, what do you do then?
Right.
So yeah, I think that's why they went and got him. That's what I've decided on anyway. I don't think he will start over on the left side. But if he did, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going with Juwan Taylor on the left, and they just needed some tackle depth. I think that's what it is, man. And they just had to pay him a little bit more than, $9 million is not terrible, but, for the type of player he is, that's probably about right, Because, like I said before last season, he was actually pretty good left tackle. He just had a rough year, so.
The kid they brought in from Tennessee, that played tackle as well. I forget his name. Jerome Carvin, I think.
Yeah.
Jerome Carvin out of Tennessee. That's a dark horse guy that can make this roster. We had a few of those last year come in, and they almost made the team, and they definitely made the practice squad.
And we signed back Allegretti, so we got him.
Right. So, but yeah, I think that's a good – Jerome Carvin is a good guy that he didn't hardly allow any pressures, any sacks. He looked good. So you never know. Who knows? But speaking of getting back into the UDFAs, we actually seen Keondre Coburn, who's turned into a fan favorite at the moment. You had alluded to it, talking about, how happy he was to be a Chief. He was like crying and stuff. Like, we get it. He's a good dude. He actually got to address everybody today, did a little bit of talking to the media, and he let it known that he's been working with Ed Oliver. That's a pretty good defensive tackle in his own right. And he also let us know that people underestimate how quick he is to be a 330-pound plus guy, and that he's always been a speedster. And then, of course, he just had a baby, so he let us know that his wife's recovering well and his baby's healthy, and he's just trying to adapt to spending time away from him because it is a newborn. But, yeah, Keondre Coburn, man, he's a guy that we picked up that I think a lot of Chief Kingdom's going to fall in love with, and I already know 100% Derek Notty's not been like the worst pick we've ever had, but I think by the end of his rookie contract, he's going to be more valuable to this team than Derek Notty was.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. Like you said, no knock on Derek Notty. I think Derek Notty's been pretty good, and he's done what he's been asked to do. And then, of course, we signed him to another 1 year to keep doing what he does. And but I think Keondre Coburn, like you said, I think by the end of his rookie contract, he's going to prove to be a little more productive. He's coming off of his best year as a pass rusher in his last year in college, and I think that he's going to work on that going forward in the NFL too. So not only is he just a big guy to plug up gaps and stop the run, but he's also got that ability to get after the passer too, which Derek Notty does in his own right. But I mean, for the most part, those big guys are just in there to stuff a run, right? I mean, it is what it is. But I do think that Keondre Coburn, he will be just as good or better by the end of it. I agree with that.
Yeah, I like Coburn. Speaking of pass rushers, BJ Thompson, another Chiefs pick that Chiefs Kingdoms fell in love with so far.
Yep.
He took the podium again today too. They asked him what his biggest thing was, and he said learning that playbook. But he also let us know that he had a private workout in the draft process with Joe Cullen, our defensive line coach. Joe Cullen loved him apparently. That's why we picked him up. He also let us know that since there was no pads on during this mini camp, that he's just going to work on his pad level and his work with his hands. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then he also said he got up to 240 pounds in the draft process, and he plans on adding more weight. I feel like he can probably add more weight. I see him coming in around 250 to 255 if he can get it on. I think if he can get to 250, 255, he's going to be a nice little piece in this defense. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a work in progress, but I mean, he is an amazing athlete. Everybody knows that. That's why everybody's excited for him. So, but yeah, BJ's got to put on some weight, and it's going to be a big step for him, right? I mean, going from Stephen F. Austin to the Kansas City Chiefs, that's a big old step. And like Darian Kennard, when he was on our show, he was talking about that was the hardest thing to do, was to adapt to being in the NFL and taking that step, and there's more pressure and things like that. So, I mean, these guys, they got a lot on their plate, especially guys like BJ that have to, maybe do a little extra to see that playing time as opposed to some of these other guys. So, but I'm excited. I think he can do it.
I mean, BJ he played at Baylor. That's not the smallest of schools. He transferred out to Stephen F. Austin. But I was just watching a thing today with, who was it? Oh, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was actually on a podcast talking to somebody, and they were asking about his transition to the NFL. And they said that it was super tough for him. And he's like, man, it's a whole different world in the NFL than it is in the NCAA. And he played the SEC, and that's Derrick Henry, who's actually had a good career so far and everything. And so BJ Thompson to come in and try to take over as like Chiefs Kingdom want him to do, I don't know if that's something he's going to be able to do. We have to give these guys a little bit of time, man. I just think that you got to give them a little bit of time. You can't be on them.
You do.
You know who
especially
else?
These late round guys for sure. But yeah, who are you bringing up?
Right. I was going to say who else? That's not made any splash at minicamp. We've not heard nothing about him. Justin Ross. He's there. He was dubbed the greatest. Is he
participating or is he just there?
He's supposed to be participating. There's not been any word on it.
I read somewhere where someone was like, well, he's there, but he's not playing or anything. So.
Well, maybe they've got him sitting on the sidelines or something, but if he can and he is healthy, he is allowed to participate. But like I said, I haven't heard nothing from him. But that just goes to prove that you don't know who's going to come on and who's not. You can coordinate all these guys in the offseason as something spectacular, and it's just a totally different ballgame once you put the pads on.
Absolutely. And Chiefs fans, we're all guilty of it. We do it every year. Every time, rookie minicamp, OTAs, and camp, there's always like those guys that everyone's just like freaking out about, right? Like Justin Ross last year or Justin Watson. There's always that guy. And then, of course, it never quite turns out the way that they think it's going to. But speaking of Justin Ross, man, the receiver room is also pretty interesting because there's a lot going on there. And I read something today where they're talking about Kadarius Toney again being the number one. That they're just expecting him to be the Chiefs' wide receiver one. And they think that he does enough. They think he's good enough, and they think he garners enough attention to get double teams. And I think that's what they are rolling with. I think that's been their intention the entire time. And then they went out and got Rashee Rice to help get some depth in that room. And then, of course, they got Richie James. They signed back Justin Watson. Of course, you still have MVS, Skyy Moore. And then you got Justin Ross. You got John Ross. There's a lot of names there, and then they have Jerry and Ely listed as a wide receiver. So I mean, that's a pretty interesting room to me as well, Mike. So do you think like all this hype that everybody's been giving Justin Ross, talking about how he's going to be the greatest thing ever and he's the next D-Hop and all this crap, like, do you think people's bubbles are about to get burst? Like, do you think he could potentially not even make the roster?
He's going to be right there on the cut line. I really do. You can't say he's not. The Chiefs may not take a fullback in this year. If that's the case, you could maybe push it out to 7 wide receivers. But we seen last year, Fountain had a heck of a camp, and he didn't even make the team. They did not let him make the team. He didn't do it. You're going to take 4 tight ends probably. That's also going to cut that down. So you've got Jody Fortson. You're going to have Noah Gray. You've got Blake Bell, and you've got Kelsey, obviously. So I don't think you're cutting a tight end to put on an extra wide receiver. So we'll see. I think Kadarius Toney is obviously wide receiver 1, as it says right now. He's got to be wide receiver 1. I think MVS probably is your second best option. That's going to rub people a lot the wrong way because they're going to say, well, what about Skyy Moore? Nothing against Skyy Moore, but I believe Skyy Moore is better off in the slot a lot, and I think MVS has enough size that he can kind of do that X row. Right. Rashee Rice, Andy Reid's probably not going to let him get as many snaps as everybody thinks he is. Now, he could come out and just be super productive, super ahead of everything, and maybe he gets it, but I don't think he's going to get as much. He'll probably get more snaps, I think, than Skyy Moore did last year. I mean, Skyy Moore, we were begging for him to get on the field. So I think he'll get more snaps there. But I was like, okay, so they're keeping Skyy Moore, they're keeping MVS, they're keeping Kadarius Toney. That's 3. They're keeping Rashee Rice. They traded up for him in the second round. You're not cutting him. That's insane. So you've got 2 roster spots. So where do they go? Because as you mentioned, you just signed Richie. I think Richie James is possibly a cut target. Justin Ross is right there. So it's going to be between Richie James, Justin Ross, John Ross, who I don't really believe has a chance, and then Justin Watson. You just give him a 2-year deal. Do you cut Justin Watson after you give him a 2-year deal? I have no idea. I don't know. So it's going to come down to those 3, and you can only keep 2. A lot of people think it's Richie James might get the axe, which I could see that, but apparently Veach has been looking at Richie James since he was in college, so they kind of like the kid. So I think it depends on what happens, man. I just don't think you can chalk Justin Ross up as being a roster spot 100%, but at the same time, you throw him back on the practice squad, and I bet it's been pumped up enough that somebody's going to come get him. You may have to keep him.
Yeah, true. But, I'm going to keep my eye on that one because that wide receiver room, that's an interesting one. But I do think that we are in a good spot. I think we got a lot of good receivers, and I think that a lot of people have been wanting to go get D-Hop and go get OBJ. and we need help in the wide receiver room. I think we're good, man. I think we're pretty good. And we all saw what MVS could do last year in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals. I think they'll rely on him a little bit more. And I think that Rashee Rice, like you said, he's probably going to get more snaps than Skyy did as a rookie, just because he offers you something different, right? Because Rashee Rice is a guy, the way he plays football, the way he likes to go after jump balls, sometimes to a fault, he likes to settle on jump balls and things like that. But he can get those contested catches. It's just a different kind of receiver than what we've had, so he brings a different element, and I think that he'll be used differently, obviously, than Skyy Moore was used last year. So
I think Rashee Rice is going to take over that Juju. If you watch Juju in our offense, there were so many times before, I want to say it was week 1 through week 6 probably, there were so many games I'd go back and watch film on Juju Smith-Schuster, and he rarely ran a route over 10 yards. He basically just worked whip routes. He worked in and outs. He worked slants, curls. He worked anything to just move the chains, and he was basically a dump down option for Patrick Mahomes when people couldn't get open over the top, and he was like a reliable source. You've seen him become a safety valve for Mahomes throughout the season. I really think Rashee Rice is going to do that. For all the speed and everything he's got such a big body, and he's physical after the catch. I believe he's going to do that a lot. I think you'll see a lot of Rashee Rice production come under 10 yards. I really do. Like, something tells me that a lot of people think he's going to be the deep ball guy. I just see it coming under the 10 to 15 yard mark a lot.
Possibly. But in my humble opinion, I believe that Skyy Moore is going to be that Juju role. I just do. I think that he's good enough. He's got sure enough hands that you can trust him to go find the soft spot in his own defense and get you a first down. And then if Skyy Moore's got the ball in his hands, this is a guy that can make a play at any given moment. Like, he's so fast in small space, kind of like Tyreek Hill was, to where he can turn a 10-yard pass into a 50-yard touchdown. So they're going to give him the ability to create yak. And I think that you're going to see Skyy Moore doing that a lot. But will Rashee Rice do that also? Yes, I think so. I just think you'll see Skyy doing it more.
Well, the thing about it, Rashee Rice, good speed. But if you watch his film in college, he did not separate very well. He just didn't separate. At the next level, at the NFL level, do you think he's going to come in and be able to separate like crazy? Probably not. Skyy Moore, he could separate. He showed last year when he was matched up one-on-one, he beat his guy. So I could see Skyy Moore getting a lot more work on the outside where he's got to take on one-on-ones and things like that, and they'll let Rasheed work the slot a little bit possibly. That's just kind of the way I see it. It could totally be wrong. I think they both do a little bit of it. I think Andy's got a receiving core here that they're all like Swiss Army knives. I think they can all do a little bit of everything.
Right.
But I think MVS has the potential to have a big breakout year this year. I think a lot of people are forgetting MVS. But Kadarius Toney, there's two things. MVS has to have a breakout year if he wants to stay around for his third year, and I think he's very capable of it. And Kadarius Toney has to stay healthy. That's the two main things. If those two, if MVS don't break out and Kadarius Toney don't stay healthy, we're going to be looking back at week 7 or 8 and being like, Brett Veach's going to have to go trade for another wide receiver because
I don't think it's going to happen. I don't. I think they're all good enough. If, like you said, if Kadarius Toney can stay on the field, if he can stay healthy, and MVS, I think you're going to see him take a step forward, I believe, because, I mean, last season, him and Mahomes just couldn't get on the same page, right? And I think it was like a chemistry thing. Maybe it was just that first year together. Maybe they get that worked out, man, because if they do, it could be a dangerous thing, because if you go back and watch film, MVS was open a lot, like wide open. And if Mahomes threw him the ball, which in some cases he didn't even look his way, but when Mahomes did, a lot of times they didn't connect. Like Mahomes was overthrowing him. He was missing him 10 yards to the left, 10 yards to the right, throwing the ball in the dirt. And obviously some of that is that bad chemistry there. Some of it's just bad throws. But, I mean, of course, some of that's on MVS as well. But I feel like that's stuff that can be cleaned up, man. And I think that he'll be pretty good this year. More than likely, you'll probably see him take a step forward. And then, of course, Skyy Moore is going to take a step forward because he's going to get more of a workload now. So I think that everybody be surprised when they see what Skyy Moore can do. I think if you go back and watch his tape in college and you see, you know, how he makes people miss and the way that he catches everything thrown to him, I think you're going to see a bigger workload this year, and I think a lot of Chiefs fans have forgot that's the type of player he is, just because they only used him sparingly last year. So I think when they see him this year, they're going to be like, dude, what happened? Who's this guy? Who's this Skyy Moore? That is Skyy Moore. He just, he was limited last year.
I think if I'm a fan of Justin Ross at this point, if I'm a Chiefs fan that just loves Justin Ross, and I'm firmly behind Justin Ross as the next best wide receiver we got, I'm a little nervous over the Rashee Rice pick. To me, they're the same wide receiver.
Sort of.
And you're not going – if you thought Justin Ross, if you were 100% sure as a Chiefs organization that Justin Ross was going to be able to come in, contribute right away, his health's not going to be a concern, we're good to go, we're set. I don't think you trade up for Rashee Rice right there. I don't think Mahomes is out there eyeing down. Do you think Justin Ross was throwing with Mahomes on the same day that Rashee Rice, and maybe that was part of the thing? Like, hey, I want you to evaluate this guy. Is he better than Justin Ross? Do you think he could contribute more? And if so, we'll go get him. And if not, we don't have to look at Rashee Rice. We have Justin Ross. I feel like I'm on that boat. These two guys are almost so similar that it makes no sense, because we already know Andy Reid and the Chiefs offense do not tend to favor bigger wide receiver targets. They don't. They like these small guys like Nico Remigio. Right. He's the one out here catching all the balls, in rookie minicamp. So it's something. It's just something about it. I would be a little bit scared about it. I feel like Rashee Rice and Justin Ross just kind of mirror each other so much. And we already know Toney, Skyy Moore, and we know MVS ain't going nowhere. So you got 3 roster spots you've got to get in there, and they're going to take 2 guys. You're not cutting Rashee Rice. He's a second-round trade-up. It ain't happening. So you got 2 roster spots. Are you really taking Justin Ross, who is a carbon copy of Rashee Rice? I don't know. This is scary. If I'm a Justin Ross fan, I'm a little nervous right now.
I wouldn't be nervous per se, but I think that definitely shows you they don't have 100% confidence in Justin Ross being a long-term answer for anything. I think Justin Ross is what he is, and Chiefs fans have blown him into something else.
But when we said that, everybody's on us. They're on our ass, Steve, saying that we don't like Justin Ross.
That's not true. We love Justin Ross. So we even mocked him before we knew about his bad medicals. We mocked him to the Chiefs in the 2nd round of last year's draft. So, I mean, if they think we don't like Justin Ross, that's just them making stuff up in their own head, because we do. We love Justin Ross. But I think Chiefs fans have pumped him up to something he is not, and something that's not fair for him to try to achieve, because he's got to go at his own pace. He's got a extensive injury history. He's got problems. Yes, he can overcome them. Yes, he's a really good receiver. But to act like that he's going to come out and be your wide receiver 1 for the best team in football, in his first year playing, it's just silly. And I think that Brett Veach and all of them, they know that that's dumb. So they went and got Rashee Rice, who like you said, he's sort of the same player. And I mean, it is what it is. Justin Ross was a UDFA for a reason. There's a reason why everybody passed on him.
Yep.
There is a reason why he was not drafted. If you have first or second round talent and you become a UDFA, there's a problem. And it's not everybody else in the NFL is just so stupid that they didn't do it. It's because there's a problem. And that's the same thing with this guy right now, the Denard Prince. I mean, I don't think that there's a problem with him per se, but why didn't he get drafted? Like, do you really think he's going to come in and be Isaiah Pacheco?
Hey, here's what I'll say. NFL teams do a lot of extensive research, but they do get it wrong. We just learned that Tyjae Spears don't even have an ACL, and he was drafted in round 2. So the Titans obviously missed that one. But I'm with you. I don't think Justin Ross – look, when he actually did go out and run some of the stuff at his pro day last year, he wasn't explosive. He was slower on his 20-yard splits, 10-yard splits. His 40 wasn't very impressive. All this equates to having to be able to get open at the next level. Right. I think Rashee Rice is heads and shoulders above Justin Ross at this point at that. And Rashee Rice could hardly get open in college. His separation wasn't that great. It's just one of those things, man. I just don't know. You can't be so – I mean, we had Haley Lewis. She's inside the Chiefs. She does locker room interviews. She talks to Brett Veach. She said she laughed when we told her that some of our fans were saying that we were crazy because we wasn't all over the Justin Ross hype. And she looked at us and said, quote, word for word, nobody in that organization thinks he's going to be a wide receiver 1 anytime soon. So it's obvious. Like, we can love Justin Ross, and I hope he has a great time. I hope he has a great career, but I just don't see how you can say he's definitively our best wide receiver we have. It's just not true. MVS at this point in his career is a better option to have on your squad. I'm sorry, he is. So obviously he's not our number 1. If Kadarius Toney and even Skyy Moore's better. Skyy Moore was a 2nd-round draft pick, guys.
Well, like you said, he's going to be on the cut line. End of story.
Yes, 100%.
There's a very, very good chance that you do not see Justin Ross as a starter. Not starter, but he's not even going to be on the roster. There's a good chance.
It's a good chance.
And people need to realize that. So go ahead and brace yourselves for that one, Chiefs Kingdom. I know that a lot of the talking heads have done a really good job of pumping this up and making you think something. But, I mean, they lead you astray sometimes to get some headlines and to get some clicks on them videos and to get some views and all that, man. But we're real with you. And the harsh reality is that is a far stretch from what's actually happening in the real world. So be prepared for that one. Definitely can't rely on that. But, yeah, man. So what else is going on with the Chiefs these days? We've talked about the running backs. We talked about the wide receivers, the O-line. I mean, at least we're solid at quarterback. We know who the man is there, right?
I think the next big group that has a little bit of uncertainty might actually be that safety corner, that DB class.
Right.
They were calling Nic Jones a steal in the 7th round. They're already saying this. I've seen several pundits say Nic Jones was a steal out of Ball State. Brett Veach did it again. How do you...
Possibly.
He's already came in minicamp and had a pick. I think he had another pick today, actually. This kid's another ball hawk. This is what they want. They traded up for Chamarri Conner. He's not going anywhere. Does this mean L'Jarius Sneed might be on his way out the door? I'm so scared of this, but we told Chiefs Kingdom to brace for L'Jarius Sneed not getting that long-term contract. If anything else, the kid's had like 45, head injuries over the past few years. He played, how many snaps did he play against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game before he knocked himself out? Was it like the 3rd snap of the game or something like that, right?
And then you actually saw him blow a coverage in the Super Bowl that could have been detrimental right there at the end of the game. So, I mean, it's like they want to pump. This is the same thing that the fans do with everybody else. They've pumped up L'Jarius Sneed to be this untouchable, greatest corner of all time, when in reality he's a good corner. He's been great, especially for the value that the Chiefs got him where they drafted him. He's excellent. He's a great blitzer. I love seeing L'Jarius Sneed get after the quarterback. He's good. He's really good. But that's just another one of them things where people need to realize, no player except outside of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, and I want to say Chris Jones, but we'll see how that unfolds.
Yeah.
But nobody else is untouchable. There's not. And L'Jarius Sneed's far from it. He's playing a position that the Chiefs have never shown that they will put a lot of money into. They just don't. We've talked about this a million times. The last time in recent history that they have gave a big contract to a corner was Brandon Flowers, and they ended up cutting him 2 years into his contract. They let Marcus Peters go. They let Charvarius Ward go. You can just keep digging. They let them go. They let them play on rookie contracts, and then they'll draft more. They let
that kid go, Brandon Carr. They let him go to Dallas on a big contract.
Right. So yeah, they're going to keep drafting DBs, and I'm sorry, I love L'Jarius Sneed, and I would love to see him stay a Chief, but I mean the reality of this one is something else you're going to have to brace yourself for, because more than likely they're not going to give him the money that he's earned, because they just don't like paying corners that much money. See Charvarius Ward. I mean, this is what it is. And then they went and drafted Chamarri Conner, and they made sure they got him. They traded up to make sure they got the guy they wanted.
Yep.
They obviously see him as a guy that can play safety or corner, which L'Jarius Sneed could do the exact same thing if they wanted to use him that way. So I mean, he's kind of got some of the same traits, and then they went and got Nic Jones, so they're still working on the DBs. So I think that you'll continue to see that, and then I think, there's a good chance L'Jarius Sneed might be in his last season here, but it's kind of like that Clyde thing where, I mean, he could have a big year. Don't get me wrong. Either of those guys, anyone playing on a contract year can have a big year because they want to get paid from somebody, whether it's the Chiefs or not. So, I mean, yeah, they could have Sneed could be great this year, but he might be gone.
Here's what I could see. I could see Nic Jones making this roster. You already got McDuffie. You already have, you've already got Reed on the back end. You already brought in Mike Edwards. Mike Edwards could be a cut. That's not guaranteed. We did bring in Lonnie Johnson last year. He didn't even get a shot, and they shipped him out the door. So there's nothing that says Mike Edwards is got a roster lock at this point. He don't. But Brian Cook is on the roster. He's young. We drafted him last year. He's not going anywhere. Chamarri Conner, they moved up for. Nic Jones has a chance. You've seen Najee Johnson come in and have some good, significant special teams play last year.
Jalen Watson started.
Right. You got Jalen Watson, Josh Williams. We're so deep. This season, L'Jarius Sneed would not surprise me if he's not this year's Rashad Fenton. He could be traded right before the deadline, get something out of him, and we just roll with the young guys. Because I'm telling you, you mentioned it, you hit the nail on the head. For L'Jarius Sneed's value when he was drafted, he's been great for the value. Do you want to pay him top safety / corner money knowing that he's got all this injury history? He knocked himself out in a big game. Like, how are you going to pay this guy that much money? He knocks himself out of the AFC Championship game. So he's got some risk to him. I could just see L'Jarius Sneed being the next Rashad Fenton. We kind of thought we said Rashad Fenton would make the team. RGR said Rashad Fenton might not even make the team last year. We were right. They made the team, but then they were right kind of because he was pretty, dispensable. They just who'd they ship him off to? Atlanta?
I don't even know. I think it was.
So it's one of those things, man. I could see L'Jarius Sneed getting shipped out the door to a team that needs a corner, and we won't look back.
All the people that keep thinking that Clyde's going to be that guy that gets traded, he might be. He that's a good target to get rid of right now would be Clyde, but I think L'Jarius Sneed's probably more likely to be the guy because I mean he's just a lot. There's a lot of teams that want good corners. I mean, there's a lot of teams that will pay corners. I mean, look how many people were obsessed with Jalen Ramsey and were trying to get him. I mean, people don't care to pay.
Yeah, and Jalen Ramsey's trash at this point.
Right,
in his career,
overrated, right?
What about the kid J.C. Jackson that the Chargers paid a crap? It
was awful. He
sucked. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, teams will do it. So I would not be surprised if they don't see what they can get for L'Jarius Sneed. I'm right there with you, Mike. I think that these young guys might come in and be expected to play just like they were last year. Because I mean, Josh Williams and Jalen Watson, they were thrown into the fire, man. They started pretty much right off the bat, and they answered the call. They did. And that, you know what that means? And McDuffie, obviously, they expected that from the first round pick. But the way these guys played last year, you expect them to be even better this year, right?
Dude, the DB coaches and Spags, they do a good job. Brett Veach does a good job of scouting these guys and bringing these late rounds. It's not a coincidence that Brett Veach keeps hitting on these guys. Like, we've got a pattern. We've got a guy that fits a system, and it's a pattern. And like I said, why you want to overpay L'Jarius Sneed that big money when you can just keep drafting these guys and getting them for basically free for 5 years? It's just you're not doing it.
So something else that everybody's talked about a little bit is the tight end position. Everyone thought we might draft the tight end. Of course, they opted not to again. So it's 2 years in a row that we've had the idea that the Chiefs might go ahead and draft a guy that could potentially replace Travis Kelsey someday. Now, last year I was, pounding the table. I want Greg Dulcich. Right? He is Travis Kelsey. Let's get Greg Dulcich and go ahead and get him in here. We did not. We passed on him and Trey McBride. He ended up, I think Trey McBride ended up in Arizona. Dulcich ended up with the Donkeys. And guess what? He went off last year. He was the only bright spot on that entire crap team last year was Greg Dulcich. And then this year there were a lot of good tight ends in this draft. Michael Mayer even dropped. We could have took him. Dalton Kincaid, of course, Buffalo grabbed him right before us in the first round. But we could have had Michael Mayer. We could have had Sam Laporta. We could have had Luke Musgraves. We could have had Zach Kuntz later on. They opted not to, man. So a lot of people's like, oh, well, Jody Fortson's going to take over that position. I don't see it, man. I just don't. I'm on the fence with Jody Fortson at this point because it's an every year thing, and I think it's going to be the breakout for Jody. And it's not his fault. But he keeps getting injured, and there's just no reliability there. But I do see some reliability in another guy, Noah Gray, that people keep overlooking. This guy's been solid for the only 2 years he's been in the league, and he's made some clutch catches for us in some, clutch moments, big games, and he's doing things the right way, man. And I think, are you with me thinking that the Chiefs think that Noah Gray is going to be that guy?
I think Noah Gray fits the profile. We know it's not Blake Bell. He's too old. Like you said, you can't trust Jody Fortson. I love Jody Fortson. I really do. But his injury history is just mounting at this point. And I just can't see it. I'll say this. The Chiefs have two guys on this team that if they were to be injured for a significant amount of time, we won't make the playoffs. That's Patrick Mahomes. That's Travis Kelsey. If Travis Kelsey misses a lot of time, you're going to see this offense change. Teams aren't going to have to double team him. Travis Kelsey's a big weapon. I don't think Chiefs fans get it. A lot of people get it, but I don't think you get it until you see it until you see it come to fruition. I don't wish that on him at all in the slightest, but you can never rule it out. He's getting a little older. The Chiefs should have did a better job addressing the tight end position, in my opinion. I think that's a position where if we would have went out and maybe have tried to sign a Dalton Schultz from Dallas in free agency, I'd have been fine with that. I think we have, and I think that's what they did with Josh Allen in Buffalo. I think that's why they took Dalton Kincaid. They just signed Dalton Knox, but I think they know that dynamic tight end that can get in the middle of the field and just move the chains like Kelsey does, that's invaluable. And I'm telling you, man, that Kelsey right after Mahomes is Kelsey, 1A, 1B. If something happens to Kelsey and he was to miss 5, 6, or even the whole season at some point, we're a whole different team. And then coming in the playoffs, I don't even know if we get a run in the playoffs without a Travis Kelsey.
I don't think it's impossible.
Do you rely on Noah Gray? Like, are you fine with Noah Gray?
I do get what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. But I don't think it would make it to where the Chiefs could make the playoffs or something like that. I don't. I think it'd just be different. It'd be a little bit different because you would see, man, tight end's not getting double-teamed. Kadarius Toney's getting double-teamed every time, right? But guess what? I think Noah Gray in one-on-ones and Andy Reid's system with Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball to him would surprise a lot of people in that situation. And I think he could become a weapon, and then everybody, they have to shift their attention back to him. Granted, he won't garner double teams like Travis Kelsey, but they're going to have to pay attention to him eventually because if you let him run around, run free because he's not Travis Kelsey, he's going to do some damage to you. I guarantee you that. Well, so I don't think it'd be like the end of the world, but I'm with you. It's a huge drop off. There's a huge step there.
Right. Well, I would say if the Chiefs offense with Kelsey is a 9.7 out of 10 and we're just humming along, if Kelsey goes down, even if Noah Gray steps up, I still feel we're like somewhere around like that 8 to 8.5 mark. Like we're just never going to be at the 9.7. And is that enough? Is that going to be enough to beat Joe Burrow and them in the playoffs? Is that enough to beat Josh Allen when it counts? That remains to be seen.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I think the main thing is that teams have to game plan for Travis Kelsey. They would not feel the need to game plan for Noah Gray. Right? Or Jody Fortson or whoever it might be. But, I mean, Travis Kelsey's a one of one, man. He's a unicorn. He's the best tight end to do it. End of story. I don't care who wants to say Gronk, who wants to say TG, who wants to say whoever. It's Travis Kelsey. There's never been anybody like him, and there won't be. So, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, if he's out, teams don't have to game plan for him. So, it is what it is. But you know what? We're not going to have that problem. We're not going to have that problem at all because Travis Kelsey is he's going to be healthy and he's going to be around for a long time.
Kelsey's the GOAT, man. But, yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for the day, man. We had a lot of good conversation here. We talked about some minicamp. We talked about, some scenarios, some roster scenarios. We talked about Mahomes' chaotic week he had. I think it's going to wrap it up, man. If you guys are watching on YouTube, welcome. If you guys haven't, youtube.com/allchiefedup. Get over there, hit the sub button. We're trying to get to 10K. This is a down part of the season. I get it. So views are down. People are not paying much attention, but there's still stuff going on. We're actually going to go live.
The hardcore Chiefs fans are still hanging around.
Right. We're going to do a live. We're doing lives a lot. And so become a member, hit that membership thing. Also, we're getting ready to get the schedule released. That's going to be a good time. So we still got stuff coming up, man. And wherever you're at on, Spotify, wherever else you're listening to this, Apple Music, give us that 5-star review. Let people know where to hear the best Chiefs content ever. Steve, do you got anything for them before we get out of here?
I do not, man. That pretty much wraps it up. But I think some things are getting ready to start happening, man, sooner than you think. So stick with us, and we appreciate you, and we'll catch you next time.
Go Chiefs. See you guys.
Thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to All Chiefed Up. Be sure to subscribe and follow on all social media at All Chiefed Up.